stepmom forced her to marry a crippled CEO, unaware he was on a secret mission to find true love. Hello, my beautiful family. My heart fills with joy every time I get to sit down and share another precious moment with you. How are you all doing today? I've missed you so much since our last story together, and your presence here means everything to me. But before we begin, let's say a word of prayer together. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this wonderful family you've given to me. As we begin today's journey, may love and light surround each one of us today and always. May our hearts overflow with peace, our burdens be lifted, and our dreams blossom beyond measure. I pray for healing for those who are hurting, strength for those facing challenges, and joy for every soul in our beautiful family. May this story touch your hearts and remind you that miracles happen when we least expect them. And may our bond grow stronger with each story we share. Amen. Today is an extra special day for me, my beloved family. As I sit here sharing this story with you, my heart is overflowing with joy because my precious sister, Isabel, is getting married tomorrow. Yes, my little sister found her soulmate, and I can't help but feel emotional about it. Could you please keep her in your prayers? Just a moment of blessing from each of you would mean the world to me. May her marriage be filled with endless love, understanding, and beautiful moments that last a lifetime. Speaking of love, I've been wondering about our last story. Did those emotional moments touch your heart? Did you feel the character's joy and pain as deeply as I did while sharing it with you? If you did, please drop a big yes in the comments below. Seeing your responses lights up my day. And while you're at it, how would you rate my storytelling on a scale of 1 to 10? Are they emotionally intriguing as you love, or are there areas you feel I should improve on? Your honest thoughts mean everything to me. When I read your comments and see the way you connect with these stories, understanding every emotional beat, it's simply amazing. Now, my precious family, grab your favorite drink, settle in close, and let me tell you about a love that proves even secrets and disabilities can't stand in the way of destiny. Let's begin. At 24, Kate Morgan radiated a warmth that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Her art classroom at Boston's Riverside Elementary was a sanctuary of creativity, where blank canvases transformed into worlds of wonder under her gentle guidance. With warm brown eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 stories and dark curls that refused to stay perfectly neat, she had a way of making every student feel seen and special. During lunch breaks, you'd find her perched by the classroom window, sketchpad in hand, capturing moments of life unfolding in the schoolyard below. Her quick, confident strokes brought scenes to life, children playing hopscotch, pigeons gathering around scattered breadcrumbs, the old maple tree's leaves dancing in the autumn breeze. Kate's colleagues often remarked how she could calm even the most restless children with her soothing voice and patient demeanor. What they didn't know was that this same gentle strength had carried her through years of hardship at home. Her small apartment above the local coffee shop held stacks of paintings, each one a window into her soul, each brushstroke a testament to her resilience. But beneath her composed exterior lay a young woman whose heart still raced at the thought of bigger dreams. Someone who stayed up late into the night working on commission pieces, saving every dollar earned, holding on to hope that one day she'd break free from the chains of her circumstances. The same hands that guided tiny fingers through their first painting projects also crafted exquisite pieces that sold quietly through local galleries, though never under her real name. Life under Patricia Morgan's roof was like walking on eggshells, delicate, dangerous, and bound to crack at any moment. The two-story Victorian house that once held Kate's happiest childhood memories had transformed into a gilded cage under her stepmother's rule. Patricia, with her perfectly styled silver-streaked hair and designer outfits, ruled their home like a CEO running a failing company, with ironclad control and constant criticism. Every morning started the same way. Patricia's voice would cut through Kate's dreams. A proper lady rises early, Catherine. The way she stretched out Kate's full name felt like a reminder that nothing about Kate would ever be quite good enough. Breakfast became a daily performance, with Patricia critiquing everything from Kate's posture to her choice of cereal, while simultaneously scrolling through her phone, searching for potential suitors who could save their family from financial ruin. The constant stream of suggestions felt more like commands: fix your hair, Catherine, it looks wild, or that dress does nothing for your figure, or when I was your age, I was already married to a man of means. Each were designed to chip away at Kate's confidence, each criticism wrapped in a thin veneer of maternal concern. The worst part wasn't the criticism, it was the way Patricia wielded Kate's father's memory like a weapon. Your father would be so disappointed in your choices, she'd say, or if your father were here, he'd want you to listen to my advice. These moments hurt the most because Kate knew her father, the kind man who'd encouraged her art and celebrated her dreams, would never have wanted this life for her. The day Kate's father passed away, their world didn't just lose its light, it lost its foundation. The successful construction company he'd built from the ground up crumbled within months, revealing a web of debts Kate never knew existed. The comfortable life they'd known vanished like morning mist, leaving behind only bills and creditors' calls. Every month became a careful dance with numbers. Kate's teacher's salary stretched thin between mortgage payments, utilities, and the basic necessities. She'd taken on private art lessons in the evenings, teaching wealthy children how to hold a brush properly while their mothers hovered nearby in designer clothes that cost more than her monthly rent. The irony wasn't lost on her, teaching others' children to create beauty while struggling to keep her own dreams from drowning in debt. Patricia's solution to their financial troubles only added to Kate's burden. We need connections, Catherine. Money marries money. The endless parade of suitable men Patricia tried to introduce her to made Kate's skin crawl. Business dinners turned into awkward setups, and casual neighborhood gatherings became networking opportunities. Each time, Kate would politely decline, earning another disappointed look from her stepmother. The weight of their situation showed in the small things, the way Kate would hesitate before buying new art supplies, how she'd learned to make her own coffee instead of buying it, the careful calculations before every grocery trip. She kept her father's old leather wallet in her purse, running her fingers over its worn edges when things got especially tough. Inside, she kept the last note he'd written her: "Keep painting your dreams, sweetheart. They're more valuable than gold." Despite everything, Kate's dream of opening her own art studio burned bright in her heart. She'd already picked out the perfect location, an old brick building downtown with huge windows that let in streams of natural light. Every time she passed by, she'd pause and let herself dream. She could see it so clearly, walls lined with student artwork, easels arranged in a circle, the scent of fresh paint and possibility in the air. Late at night, after grading papers and finishing commission pieces, she'd open her worn leather notebook. Inside, carefully written plans detailed everything from budget spreadsheets to class schedules. She'd already chosen a name, Colors of Hope Art Studio, a place where anyone could learn to express themselves through art, just as her father had encouraged her to do. The notebook held paint swatches for the walls, sketches of room layouts, and lists of supplies she'd need. Each week, she'd put away whatever money she could save into a special account. Some weeks it was only $5, others maybe $50 from a commission piece. Progress was slow, but steady. Like adding layers to a painting, she was building her dream one small brushstroke at a time. She kept track of every penny in a small notebook, watching the number grow bit by bit, holding on to faith that someday it would be enough. The studio represented more than just a business to Kate, it was freedom. freedom from Patricia's control, freedom from financial worry, freedom to honor her father's memory by helping others discover the healing power of art. In her mind, she could already hear children's laughter echoing off the walls, see adult students discovering their hidden talents, feel the joy of creating a space where art could transform lives just as it had transformed hers. The day Kate met James Walker started like any other Tuesday at one of Patricia's charity luncheons. These events had become a constant in their lives since their financial troubles began, another excuse for Patricia to parade Kate in front of Boston's elite. But this time was different. James Walker commanded attention without saying a word. At 32, he sat in his custom wheelchair at the head of the table, his presence radiating quiet power. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his tailored charcoal suit speaking of wealth without flaunting it. As CEO of Walker Technologies, he'd transformed a small startup into a billion-dollar empire before his 30th birthday. What struck Kate wasn't his obvious wealth or success, it was his eyes. Sharp, intelligent blue eyes that seemed to see right through the pretense of the charity lunch. While others spoke loudly of their contributions, he remained silent, observing. His strong jaw would tighten occasionally, his long fingers tapping thoughtfully on the wheelchair's armrest. When Kate accidentally dropped her sketch pad near his table, she noticed how quickly his eyes moved to follow the movement, despite his body remaining still. As she bent to retrieve it, their eyes met. His gaze held something unexpected, not pity or dismissal, but genuine curiosity. "You're an artist?" His voice was deep, with a warmth that surprised her. The question wasn't the usual polite small talk she'd come to expect at these events. He actually seemed interested. "An art teacher," Kate replied, clutching her sketch pad closer. A slight smile curved his lips. "Those who can, do. Those who can do exceptionally well, teach." The quote wasn't delivered with the usual condescension. Instead, his eyes flickered to her sketch pad again. "May I?" Before Kate could respond, Patricia materialized beside them, her social smile firmly in place. But Kate had seen something in that brief exchange, a flash of something real in a world full of facades. James Walker's relationship with his wheelchair was a study in contradictions. He handled it with practiced ease, maneuvering through the crowded charity event with graceful precision. Yet there was something in the way he held himself, a subtle tension in his shoulders, a controlled strength in his arms, that hinted at more than met the eye. The rumors about his condition floated through Boston's high society like autumn leaves. Some said it was a tragic skiing accident 2 years ago that left him partially paralyzed. Others whispered about a car crash that shattered his lower body. James never confirmed or denied any of these stories, letting the speculation swirl around him while he focused on building his empire. His limitations seemed to end at his wheelchair. In meetings, his mind was legendarily sharp. He'd close million-dollar deals with a few carefully chosen words, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made people lean in to listen. His hands moved constantly, signing documents, typing on his specialized laptop, or absently adjusting his Italian leather shoes that had never touched the ground in public. Kate noticed the small details others missed. The way his legs sometimes tensed when he thought no one was watching. How his fingers would occasionally drift to his knees, as if checking something. The careful way he positioned himself at tables, always angled slightly to keep the entire room in his view. For someone supposedly limited by his disability, his awareness of his surroundings was remarkable. Most intriguing were his eyes, always alert, always observing. They carried no trace of the helplessness or resignation often seen in those facing permanent disability. Instead, they held a kind of patient calculation, like a chess master waiting for the perfect moment to make his move. When those eyes turned to Kate, they held questions she couldn't quite decode, as if he was solving a puzzle only he could see. As they got home, Patricia wasted no time weaving her web around James Walker's presence in their lives. She transformed their home into a stage, with every dinner, every phone call, every casual encounter meticulously planned. The familiar gleam in her eyes told Kate that her stepmother had found her perfect target. "Did you know, Catherine, that the Walkers own half of Boston's tech district?" Patricia would say over breakfast, sliding the business section of the newspaper toward Kate. "And James, despite his condition, has doubled their company's worth in just 3 years. Such an ambitious man." The words dripped with honey-coated calculation. The accidentals meetings multiplied. Kate would arrive at her favorite coffee shop only to find James there, Patricia having mentioned to his assistant where Kate took her morning breaks. School events suddenly had Walker Technologies sponsoring them. Art supplies mysteriously arrived at Kate's classroom, courtesy of an anonymous donor whose identity Patricia all but revealed over dinner. Poor James, Patricia would sigh, playing her favorite role of the concerned socialite. Such a brilliant man, trapped in that wheelchair. He needs someone special in his life, someone who can see past his disability to the man beneath. Her eyes would fix meaningfully on Kate, the pressure building with each passing day. The night Patricia revealed her grand plan started with a phone call. Kate heard her stepmother's voice rise in panic from downstairs, words like foreclosure and final notice cutting through the evening quiet. When Kate descended the stairs, she found Patricia sitting in their father's old leather chair, her usually perfect makeup smeared with tears. "We're losing everything, Catherine," Patricia's voice trembled. "The house, your father's legacy, all of it." She laid out papers across the coffee table, bank statements, legal notices, debt collections. The numbers blurred before Kate's eyes, each page revealing a deeper hole than the last. "But there's a solution," Patricia continued, her voice steadying. "James Walker has made an offer." The proposal was as simple as it was shocking. Marriage to James would secure their financial future, save their home, and protect what remained of her father's legacy. Each word from Patricia's lips felt like another brick in a wall closing around Kate. The charity events, the chance meetings, the art gallery, all pieces of Patricia's carefully constructed trap. "He's willing to handle all our debts, Catherine. Every single one." Patricia's voice took on an urgent edge. "Think of your father. Think of your dreams. You could have your art studio. James has already mentioned converting one of his properties downtown." The mention of her dream studio felt like a knife twisting in Kate's heart. "All you have to do is say yes." The weight of the decision pressed down on Kate like lead. Her father's house, his memory, her own dreams, all balanced against a marriage to a man she barely knew. A man whose own secrets seemed to run as deep as his bank account. James Walker, the brilliant CEO in his wheelchair, who watched her with those knowing eyes that held mystery she couldn't fathom. "You have until tomorrow evening to decide," Patricia announced, gathering the papers with steady hands, her moment of vulnerability already tucked away. "James is hosting a dinner at his estate. He expects your answer then. Now, my beautiful family, I know what you're thinking. This seems like another story of manipulation and forced love, right? But hold on tight, because what I'm about to reveal about James Walker's true mission will make your heart stop. The real reason behind his wheelchair, the secret that's been hiding in plain sight, it's going to change everything. So, stay with me, hit that like button and subscribe if you've not done that yet, because this story is about to take a turn that will make you believe in destiny all over again. The Walker estate sprawled across 20 acres of Massachusetts countryside, its stone walls and manicured gardens standing sentinel against the October chill. Kate had finally agreed to marry him. On her wedding day, frost kissed the rose bushes and mist clung to the perfectly trimmed hedges, nature itself seeming to mirror the coldness of the occasion. Inside the estate's private chapel, only a handful of guests occupied the ancient wooden pews. No friends, no distant relatives, just Boston's elite business circle, their presence more political than personal. Patricia sat in the front row, her smile triumphant, her designer dress a splash of burgundy against the chapel's muted tones. James waited at the altar, his wheelchair positioned precisely between two towering flower arrangements. His tailored black suit emphasized the breadth of his shoulders, his posture impeccable despite his seated position. When Kate appeared at the chapel doors, his eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. The walk down the aisle felt endless. Kate's white dress, chosen by Patricia, whispered against the stone floor. Each step brought her closer to a future she hadn't chosen, yet something in James's steady gaze held her like an anchor in a storm. His hands rested perfectly still on his wheelchair's arms, but she noticed his fingers tense slightly as she drew near. The ceremony passed in a blur of formal words and practiced responses. When the time came to exchange rings, James's hands were surprisingly warm as they slid the platinum band onto her finger. His touch lingered a fraction longer than necessary, and Kate caught something flicker in his eyes, something that didn't match the coldness of their arranged union. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." The words echoed through the chapel, met with polite applause from their carefully curated audience. As James led them back down the aisle, his wheelchair moving with practiced precision, Kate noticed how his security team's eyes followed their every move. Even on his wedding day, she realized, James Walker remained surrounded by secrets. The reception buzzed with quiet conversation and tinkling champagne glasses, but Kate's mind was a battlefield of conflicting emotions. She sat beside James at the head table, playing the role of the blushing bride while her thoughts raced like wild horses. Every time she glanced at her new wedding ring, guilt clawed at her chest. Her father had always taught her that marriage should be about love, about finding someone who made your soul sing. Now here she was, selling herself to save their home, their legacy. Would he understand? Or would he be disappointed in her choice to trade her heart for financial security? The weight of her decision pressed heavier with each congratulatory handshake and false smile. Part of her wanted to run, to flee from this gilded cage and find her own way out of their financial mess. But another part remembered the quiet strength in James's eyes, the gentle way his hands had held hers during the ceremony. He wasn't the monster she'd feared when Patricia first proposed this arrangement, but that almost made it worse. Between courses, she caught herself studying her new husband's profile, trying to read the mysteries written in the lines of his face. He treated her with unfailing courtesy, yet kept her at arm's length. Their conversations were polite, measured, revealing nothing of the man beneath the successful CEO facade. She'd married a stranger, and the realization that she might never truly know him felt like ice in her veins. Throughout the reception, Kate noticed peculiar patterns in James's behavior that didn't quite fit the image of a disabled CEO. His eyes constantly scanned the room in a calculated pattern, like someone trained to observe. When he thought no one was watching, his posture would shift subtly, his muscles tensing in ways that seemed unnecessary for someone truly paralyzed. During their first dance, a simplified version to accommodate his wheelchair, his grip on her hand held a strength that surprised her. His touch was confident, controlled, yet there was a restraint in his movements that felt deliberate rather than forced. At one point, when she nearly stumbled, his reflexes were lightning quick, his hand steadying her with precision that seemed at odds with his condition. The most intriguing moments came during his quiet conversations with his security team. They would approach periodically, whispering information in his ear. Each time, James's expression would change almost imperceptibly, his jaw tightening or relaxing based on whatever news they delivered. These weren't the typical security updates one would expect at a wedding, they felt more like mission reports. Even his interaction with the wedding gifts raised questions. When presented with a heavy crystal vase, his arms showed no strain as he lifted it, something that should have been challenging for someone who relied on upper body strength alone. Yet seconds later, he asked for assistance with a much lighter gift, as if catching himself in a momentary lapse. As the reception drew to a close, the subtle signs of James's hidden strength became impossible for Kate to ignore. When he guided his wheelchair down the estate's curved ramp, his movements were too smooth, too controlled. His body showed none of the natural sway that usually accompanied wheelchair navigation. Instead, he moved with the practiced precision of someone performing a well-rehearsed role. In quiet moments, Kate caught glimpses of raw power beneath his tailored suit. The muscles in his forearms flexed with unnecessary strength when he gripped his wheelchair. His shoulders, broad and solid, carried none of the strain common to those who relied on upper body strength for mobility. Even more telling was the way his legs sometimes tensed beneath his suit pants, particularly when security alerts caught his attention. There was something almost military in his bearing, the way he positioned himself in the room, always maintaining clear sightlines to all exits. His hands, though elegant, bore the subtle calluses of someone familiar with more than just boardroom battles. Every movement seemed choreographed, deliberate, as if his wheelchair was less a necessity and more of a prop in an elaborate performance. Most revealing was the moment when a waiter stumbled near them, sending a champagne glass crashing to the floor. Before anyone could react, James's entire body had coiled with lethal readiness, his hands gripping the wheelchair arms with combat-ready tension rather than invalid uncertainty. For a split second, Kate saw behind the mask, saw the warrior beneath the businessman's facade. Life in the Walker mansion felt like stepping into another world. Kate's new home sprawled across 3 floors, each room more opulent than the last. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the private gardens, while priceless art adorned walls covered in hand-painted silk. Yet despite its grandeur, the mansion held an air of mystery that grew stronger with each passing day. Her mornings began in a kitchen larger than her old apartment, where staff moved with quiet efficiency, preparing meals that appeared like clockwork. But Kate noticed how they always seemed to know James's location, adjusting their routines around his movements with military precision. These weren't ordinary household staff, their alertness and coordination spoke of specialized training. Her art studio, a wedding gift from James, occupied the mansion's east wing. The space was perfect, flooded with natural light, equipped with every supply she could dream of. But even here, she felt watched. Security cameras blinked silently from discreet corners, and the windows, though beautiful, were made of bulletproof glass. She discovered this by accident, overhearing a maintenance check. Most intriguing was the mansion's west wing, which remained largely off-limits. James claimed it housed his home office and private gym, but Kate often heard sounds that didn't match this explanation, the rhythm of multiple footsteps, muffled conversations in foreign languages, the occasional sound of what seemed like training exercises. The contrast between the mansion's luxurious facade and its underlying secrets grew more apparent with each day. Their late-night conversations began unexpectedly, 3 weeks into their marriage. Kate found James in the library at midnight, his wheelchair positioned by the fireplace, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. Something about the flickering flames and hushed darkness made him different, more real, less guarded. "Why did you agree to this marriage?" he asked that first night, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. When Kate mentioned their financial situation, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Money is just paper, Kate." There had to be something more. The way he studied her face made her wonder if he already knew her deeper reasons. These midnight meetings became their ritual. Sometimes they'd talk about art. James revealed a surprising knowledge of Renaissance masters. Other nights, they discussed their childhoods, though Kate noticed how carefully he edited his stories, as if measuring each word. He'd ask about her students, her dreams for the art studio, listening with an intensity that made her feel truly seen. But it was during these quiet hours that Kate caught more glimpses of the man behind the mask. His hands would sometimes grip the whiskey glass with unnecessary strength. His posture would shift when he grew passionate about a topic, his body moving in ways that seemed too fluid for someone with his supposed limitations. Once, when she mentioned her father, genuine emotion flashed across his face before he could hide it, a flash of understanding that spoke of personal loss. The discovery of James's physical therapy routine happened by accident. One early morning, unable to sleep, Kate wandered toward the West Wing, drawn by the sound of rhythmic movement. Through a partially open door, she saw something that stopped her heart. James was standing. Not just standing, but moving with controlled power. In a private gym equipped with specialized equipment, he progressed through what looked more like combat training than physical therapy. His movements were precise, powerful, his muscles rippling beneath a fitted training shirt. The wheelchair sat empty in the corner, like a prop waiting for its actor to return. The session lasted exactly 45 minutes. Kate watched, frozen, as James executed perfect kicks, his legs showing no sign of paralysis. His trainer, a stern-faced man with military bearing, called out commands in what sounded like Russian. James responded instantly to each order, his body moving with lethal grace. This was no rehabilitation, this was a warrior maintaining his edge. Just before the session ended, Kate caught a glimpse of James's back as he changed shirts. A map of scars crossed his skin, not from an accident, but the kind that came from combat. Everything clicked into place, his too smooth wheelchair movements, his hyper-awareness, his perfectly controlled strength. The question wasn't why he used a wheelchair, it was why he pretended to need one. The mysterious phone calls always came at odd hours. Kate would wake to hushed voices in James's study, conversations in languages she didn't recognize, Russian, Arabic, Mandarin. Through the door, she'd hear him speaking with authority, his voice carrying none of the careful restraint he usually showed in public. These calls followed a pattern. They'd start with coded phrases, followed by intense discussions that sometimes lasted hours. After each one, security around the mansion would shift subtly, new guards appearing, patrol patterns changing. James's wheelchair persona would become even more meticulous in the following days, as if compensating for something. The meetings were even more intriguing. Men in expensive suits would arrive under cover of darkness, their cars bearing diplomatic plates. They'd disappear into the West Wing for hours, emerging looking either relieved or troubled. One night, Kate overheard a fragment that chilled her. "The mission is almost complete, sir. Your cover has held perfectly." Most telling were the documents she glimpsed on James's desk during these meetings, satellite photos, dossiers, papers covered in complex codes. None of it matched the image of a tech CEO, but it painted a clear picture of something else entirely, a covert operation run by a man whose disability was nothing more than a masterful disguise. As days went by, their connection deepened over unexpected conversations about art. One evening, Kate found James in her studio, studying her latest painting with genuine interest. His wheelchair was positioned close to the canvas, his eyes tracking every brushstroke with surprising knowledge. "Your use of light here," he said, gesturing to a sunset scene, "reminds me of Turner's later works." When Kate's surprise showed on her face, a rare genuine smile crossed his lips. "I spent 3 months in London once, studying at the National Gallery." He paused, catching himself. "For business research, of course." Soon, their discussions of art became a daily ritual. James revealed a deep understanding of classical techniques, often challenging Kate's interpretations with thoughtful questions. He spoke about colors like old friends, the way cerulean blue could capture loneliness, how burnt sienna held warmth and secrets. His observations were too personal, too passionate to be merely academic. One evening, he brought her a gift, a rare book of Renaissance sketches. As Kate turned the delicate pages, James described each technique with the expertise of someone who'd studied them firsthand. "Art is truth in disguise," he said softly, their eyes meeting over the ancient drawings. "Sometimes the only way to reveal something real is to wrap it in beauty." The words felt like a confession, though of what, Kate wasn't sure. James's support for Kate's dreams began subtly, then bloomed into something extraordinary. It started with a phone call to her school, arranging for her to teach advanced art classes. Then came the surprise delivery of professional-grade supplies for her students, enough to ensure no child would ever have to skip an art project due to cost. But it was his involvement in her studio dream that truly showed his commitment. One morning, he asked her to join him for a drive downtown. When their car stopped in front of the old brick building she'd always admired, James handed her a set of keys. "I believe in making dreams real," he said simply. "The space is yours to transform." He didn't just provide the building, he became invested in every detail of her vision. During their evening conversations, he'd review her business plans, offering insights that went beyond mere financial advice. He connected her with local artists, arranged meetings with gallery owners, and even suggested innovative ways to offer scholarships to underprivileged students. "Your father was right," he told her one evening, after reviewing her class curriculum. "Art has the power to change lives." The mention of her father startled her. She'd never told him about those conversations. But before she could ask, he continued, "I've made arrangements for your first month of classes to be fully booked. Word spread quickly once people heard about your teaching methods." His eyes held a mix of pride and something deeper, something that made her heart skip a beat. The tenderness crept in through small moments, catching them both by surprise. Like the rainy evening when Kate fell asleep in the library while sketching. She woke to find James's jacket draped carefully over her shoulders, its warmth carrying a trace of his cologne. He sat nearby, pretending to read but watching her with gentle eyes. Their accidental touches began to linger. When she helped adjust his wheelchair at dinner, his hand would brush against hers, sending warmth through her skin. During their art discussions, they'd lean closer, shoulders touching as they studied a particular painting. Each contact felt electric, loaded with unspoken meaning. One night, during a power outage, they sat in the darkness of the kitchen sharing leftover chocolate cake. James told her stories about his childhood, and for once, he seemed to forget his usual careful editing. He laughed openly, reached for her hand across the table, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. In the candlelight, his guard dropped completely, showing her a man who could be playful, vulnerable, real. The most touching moment came after Kate had a nightmare about her father. James found her in her studio at 3 a.m., tears staining her cheeks as she painted her pain onto canvas. Without a word, he moved from his wheelchair to sit beside her on the floor, pulled her close, and held her while she cried. His strong arms created a safe haven, his heartbeat steady against her ear. Neither of them mentioned how easily he'd left his wheelchair, or how naturally he held her. Some truths were better left in the silence of dawn. Trust grew between them like a delicate flower pushing through cracks in a wall of secrets. Kate never mentioned seeing James's combat training sessions. He never explained the mysterious meetings. Instead, they built their trust on the things they could share, their daily moments, their growing connection, their honest reactions to each other. She learned to read his moods through subtle signs. The way his jaw tightened after certain phone calls meant he was protecting her from something. His extra careful wheelchair movements in public meant security concerns were high. When he relaxed around her in private, letting his guard slip, she recognized it as the gift of trust it was. James, too, began noticing her silent acceptance. When she'd bring him coffee during late-night meetings, placing it precisely where he could reach it while maintaining his cover, his eyes would soften with gratitude. She'd leave sketches in his study, peaceful scenes that offered quiet comfort after his tense calls. Without words, she showed him she could handle his complexities. Most importantly, they trusted in their growing feelings for each other. Neither spoke of love, but it showed in countless ways. In how James's voice changed when he said her name. In how Kate's hand would automatically find his shoulder when she passed his wheelchair. In their shared glances that held entire conversations. Their marriage may have started as an arrangement, but it was becoming something real, something worth protecting, secrets and all. My beautiful family, hold on to your hearts, because the truth about James's mission, about his wheelchair, about everything he'd been hiding, it's about to spill out in a way that will make you believe in true love all over again. The moment Kate discovers the real reason behind this elaborate deception. I promise you, it's nothing like what you're thinking. Get ready, because this revelation changed not just Kate's life, but redefined everything she believed about love and trust. The truth spilled out on a stormy night, when thunder rattled the mansion's windows. Kate found James standing, fully standing, in his private study, his wheelchair nowhere in sight. His back was to her, his attention focused on a wall of surveillance screens showing footage of their first meeting, their wedding, their quiet moments together. I was never looking for a business merger or a social alliance, he said without turning, his voice heavy with truth. I was looking for something real in a world of lies. When he finally faced her, his eyes held a vulnerability she'd never seen before. I'm part of an elite government task force, Kate. My work involves infiltrating high-level criminal organizations. The wheelchair was my cover, a way to appear harmless while gathering intelligence. But then his voice softened, a smile touching his lips. The marriage arrangement was supposed to be part of my cover too. A wealthy, disabled CEO finding a wife, it fit the narrative perfectly. But something happened that wasn't in any mission brief. He moved toward her with fluid grace. I fell in love. Really, truly in love. For the first time in my life, my heart outranked my mission. He reached for her hands, his touch gentle but sure. Every criminal organization I investigated had one thing in common: they were built on fake relationships, strategic marriages, cold alliances. I needed my cover to be different. I needed a real connection. That's why your stepmother's proposal intrigued me, not because of your family's financial situation, but because when I looked into your eyes that first day, I saw something genuine in a world of facades. I was never injured, James confessed, moving across the room with athletic grace. The wheelchair, the physical therapy sessions, the supposed recovery, it was all part of my cover. He demonstrated with a series of fluid movements that would have been impossible for someone with his supposed condition. Those therapy sessions I caught you spying weren't about healing, they were about maintaining my combat skills while keeping up appearances. His hands flexed unconsciously as he spoke. Every stumble was calculated, every sign of progress carefully planned. The hardest part wasn't pretending to be disabled, it was holding back when I saw you struggle with something I could easily help with. He walked to the window, his stride strong and confident. The scars you saw are real, but they're from missions, not accidents. Each one represents a different operation, a different role I had to play. Running a hand through his hair, he turned back to face her. But living this role with you, it became harder each day. When you'd help me with simple tasks, your touch so gentle, your patience so genuine, I wanted nothing more than to stand up and pull you into my arms. A small smile crossed his face as he approached her. The hardest moments were during our midnight talks. Sitting still in that chair when every instinct told me to move closer to you, to show you who I really was. But I had to maintain the cover, had to keep playing the role, until I realized I wasn't playing anything anymore. My feelings for you became the most real thing in my life. Your stepmother, Patricia, James said, his voice taking on a harder edge, she wasn't just arranging a convenient marriage. She was an unwitting part of a larger plan. He pulled out a file from his desk, spreading photographs across the surface. She'd been approaching several wealthy men before me, trying to arrange a marriage for you. It caught our agency's attention. We discovered that some of her potential matches were connected to organizations we were investigating. She had no idea, she was simply looking for money and status. He picked up a photo of Patricia at one of her charity events. When she approached me, it aligned perfectly with my mission. I could maintain my cover as a disabled CEO while keeping watch on these connections. But Patricia's desperation to secure your marriage went deeper than financial troubles. She'd made promises to people she shouldn't have, gotten involved with circles that could have put you in danger. His jaw tightened as he continued. By arranging our marriage, I was able to protect you from connections she'd unknowingly made with some very dangerous people. The debts, the foreclosure notices, they were real, but they weren't the whole story. Patricia had entangled herself in a web she didn't understand. When I discovered you were at risk because of her actions, the mission became personal. Marrying you didn't just maintain my cover, it kept you safe from threats you never knew existed. Kate stumbled backward, her mind reeling as every moment of their marriage replayed with new meaning. The gentle touches, the midnight conversations, the way he'd supported her dreams, all of it balanced on a foundation of lies. Her heart pounded against her ribs as confusion warred with understanding. So none of it was real? Her voice trembled, but her eyes held steady on his. The wheelchair, the marriage, the way you. She stopped, unable to say the way you looked at me because even now, his gaze made her pulse race. Was I just part of your mission? Another prop in your perfect cover story? But even as the words left her mouth, memories flooded back, the tenderness in his touch when he thought no one was watching, the way he'd truly seen her art, understood her dreams. The genuine emotion in his voice during their late-night talks. Those moments hadn't been scripted or planned. They'd been real. Tears spilled down her cheeks as the truth settled in her heart. "You didn't have to get involved in my studio dreams," she whispered. "You didn't have to spend hours discussing art with me, or hold me when I cried about my father. None of that was necessary for your mission." She took a step toward him, her voice growing stronger. "You did those things because somewhere along the way, this stopped being just a mission for you, didn't it?" The confrontation with her stepmom erupted during one of Patricia's charity galas at the Walker Mansion. As guests mingled in the grand ballroom, Patricia cornered Kate near the French doors, her voice low but sharp. "I've been getting strange calls, Catherine. People asking questions about James's condition, about your marriage. What have you done?" Before Kate could respond, James wheeled into view. In one fluid motion that stunned the gathered crowd, he rose from his wheelchair, standing tall and powerful. Patricia's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The room fell silent. "What I've done, Patricia," James's voice carried across the stillness, "is protect your stepdaughter from the mess you created." He moved forward with lethal grace, all pretense gone. "Those people you were so eager to connect with, the ones you thought would solve your financial troubles, they weren't just wealthy businessmen. They were criminals who would have used Kate as leverage." Patricia's face drained of color as James produced a file. "Every introduction you arranged, every chance meeting you set up, you were dealing with dangerous people. Did you even check who they were before you tried to sell your stepdaughter to them?" The accusations hit like physical blows, making Patricia stagger backward. "I never meant." Patricia's voice cracked. "The debts after Robert died. I was desperate. Desperate enough to ignore the signs?" James's words were steel wrapped in silk. Desperate enough to hand Kate over to people who would have destroyed her life. As James stood at his full height, his presence commanding the space, a collective gasp had rippled through the ballroom. The transformation was stunning. Gone was the vulnerable CEO in his wheelchair, replaced by a man whose every movement spoke of power and precision. His tailored suit, once chosen to soften his appearance, now highlighted the strength he'd hidden for so long. Kate watched as James moved through the crowd with fluid grace, each step deliberate and sure. The guests drew back, creating a path between him and Patricia. His face held no trace of the mask he'd worn for months, no carefully crafted weakness, no calculated dependency. Instead, his eyes blazed with protective fury after he approached his mother-in-law. The security team materialized around them, their stances shifting from passive observation to alert readiness. James's true identity rippled through the room in whispers, words like agent and undercover are passing from lips to ears. The wheelchair sat empty now, a prop abandoned when its role in the play had ended, while its former occupant stood as a shield between Kate and those who would harm her. It was Kate who broke the tense silence, stepping forward to stand beside James. "All this time," she said, her voice carrying across the hushed room, "you were protecting me. Not just from them, but from the truth about Patricia." She turned to face him, tears shining in her eyes. "And somewhere along the way, you started protecting my heart too." James's expression softened as he looked at her, the fierce agent melting into the man she'd fallen in love with during their midnight talks. "I took this mission to find evidence," he said softly, though everyone could hear, "but I found something far more precious. I found you, Kate. Your strength, your passion, your pure heart, they changed everything. The mission became real the moment I truly saw you," he continued, taking her hand. "Every conversation about art, every shared dream, every quiet moment, none of that was pretend. I fell in love with you, Kate. Completely, irrevocably in love. The only lie was the wheelchair. The rest, every feeling, every touch, every promise, that was all real. Kate stood at the center of the storm, every eye in the room fixed on her. On one side, Patricia, the woman who'd raised her after her father's death, who'd made choices born of desperation that nearly destroyed them all. On the other, James, the man who'd entered her life as a deception but had become her truest reality. "Catherine, please," Patricia pleaded, reaching for her. "Everything I did was to secure your future. These people promised to help us keep your father's legacy alive." Her voice cracked with genuine tears. "I was trying to protect you the only way I knew how." James remained silent, his hand still holding Kate's, his thumb brushing softly across her knuckles. He wasn't trying to influence her choice, he was supporting her right to make it. In that touch, Kate felt the truth of every moment they'd shared, every late-night conversation, every dream he'd helped her build. The weight of the decision pressed down on her shoulders. To forgive Patricia meant understanding that love, even misguided, could lead people to make terrible choices. To choose James meant accepting that truth could grow from deception, that real love could bloom in the most unexpected places. Kate took a deep breath, squeezing James's hand. "Patricia," she said, her voice steady, "I forgive you. But I choose truth. I choose real love." She turned to James, tears flowing freely now. "I choose the man who protected me by learning to love me, not the safety net that would have destroyed me." In the weeks that followed the revelation, healing began in unexpected ways. Patricia entered therapy, finally confronting the grief and fear that had driven her desperate choices. She started volunteering at a women's financial literacy program, turning her hard-learned lessons into hope for others. Kate and Patricia's relationship transformed into something new, more honest, more equal. Over Sunday brunches, they began rebuilding their bond, acknowledging past hurts while creating space for future joy. Patricia watched with quiet pride as Kate flourished, no longer trying to control her daughter's path, but simply supporting her journey. James played his part in the healing too. He helped Patricia restructure her debts legally, ensuring she had a fresh start. More importantly, he showed her what true protection looked like, not through manipulation or control, but through honest care and respect. The three of them became an unlikely family, bound together not by secrets anymore, but by choice and understanding. The opening night of Colors of Hope Art Gallery transformed Kate's lifelong dream into reality. The restored brick building glowed with warmth, its tall windows showcasing her students' artwork alongside her own pieces. Each room told a story, from children's first paintings to advanced students' masterpieces, all displayed with the same loving care. The main gallery space buzzed with energy as visitors moved from piece to piece. Kate had designed the layout herself, creating a journey through different emotions and experiences. Her father's portrait held a place of honor, surrounded by paintings that captured his spirit, scenes of construction sites at sunrise, builders sharing lunch breaks, the beauty of creating something lasting. James stood proudly by her side, no wheelchair in sight, watching as she guided guests through her vision. The gallery included a dedicated teaching space where she'd already enrolled her first class of scholarship students. Local art teachers, many from underfunded schools, had partnered with her to provide after-school programs. "This isn't just an art gallery," Kate explained to the gathered crowd during her opening speech. "This is a home for dreamers, for anyone who needs a safe place to create. Every brush stroke here represents someone's story, someone's hope." She looked at James, her eyes shining. "Sometimes the most beautiful things come from believing in possibilities, from daring to trust in dreams that seem impossible. With his mission complete and the wheelchair cover no longer needed, James embraced his true identity with quiet relief. He maintained his position as CEO of Walker Technologies, but now his strength and capabilities were on full display. His employees watched in amazement as their supposedly disabled boss strode confidently through meetings, his previous limitations revealed as masterful deception. The transition became a story of inspiration, though not in the way most assumed. Rather than a tale of physical recovery, it became a story of truth emerging from shadows. James used his platform to advocate for actual disabled CEOs, establishing a foundation that supported disabled entrepreneurs and business leaders. He turned his experience into a force for genuine change. The physical training sessions that Kate had once secretly witnessed became something they shared. Every morning, they'd work out together in the home gym, James teaching her self-defense moves while she teased him about his perfect form. These moments, filled with laughter and playful competition, healed the last traces of deception between them. Now, when he moved with fluid grace or showed his combat skills, Kate watched with pride rather than suspicion. Their first real kiss, with no secrets between them, happened in Kate's art studio. She was painting a sunset when James wrapped his arms around her from behind, his touch sure and strong. When she turned in his embrace, his eyes held nothing but truth and love. Their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home, tender at first, then deepening with all the passion they'd held back for so long. Their love bloomed fully in the open now. James no longer had to restrain his protective instincts or hide his strength. He'd sweep Kate into his arms just because he could, spinning her through their kitchen during midnight snacks. They'd race each other through the garden paths where he once wheeled carefully, their laughter echoing across the estate grounds. Every evening brought new discoveries of each other. Kate loved watching James move freely, his natural grace no longer hidden. He delighted in her spontaneous displays of affection, the way she'd jump into his arms, trusting his strength completely. Their midnight talks continued, but now they curled together on the library couch, no wheelchair between them, no secrets in their words. Their story became legend in Boston social circles, the mysterious CEO and the artist who found real love through an arranged marriage. But only they knew the whole truth, how love had grown through quiet moments and midnight conversations, through shared dreams and gentle support. How trust had built slowly, surviving deception to become something unshakable. They'd started as strangers in an arrangement, become partners in a mission, and emerged as soulmates who'd chosen each other despite every obstacle. My dear family, sometimes life pushes us down paths we never chose. When pressure builds from all sides, family expectations, financial struggles, other people's plans for our lives, it's easy to lose sight of our own hearts. Kate's story teaches us something precious. Even in our darkest moments, we have the power to choose our own way. You see, Kate could have given in to her stepmother's original plans. She could have married any wealthy man for security alone. She could have abandoned her dreams of teaching art and opening her gallery. But instead, she held on to hope. Even when she agreed to marry James, she never completely let go of who she was. What makes this story so beautiful isn't just the love they found, it's how they found it. Through honesty, through standing firm in their truth, through choosing to trust their hearts even when surrounded by secrets. Sometimes the hardest path, the one filled with uncertainty and challenges, leads us to our greatest joy. Just like paint on canvas, life's masterpiece often comes from embracing the unexpected strokes of fate while staying true to our own colors. 1 year later, the Walker mansion rang with the sounds of baby laughter. In their private garden, Kate sat sketching while James cradled their newborn twins, a boy and girl who'd inherited their mother's artistic soul and their father's watchful eyes. The babies, just 3 months old, had already become the center of their universe. Their son, named Robert after Kate's father, would wave his tiny fists at the colorful mobiles Kate painted for their nursery. Their daughter, Grace, already had her father's intense focus, studying everything around her with curious eyes. James had traded his late-night missions for midnight feedings, claiming these peaceful moments with his children were the greatest mission of his life. The nursery became Kate's masterpiece, walls painted with storybook scenes that seemed to dance in the sunlight. James would often find her there, telling the twin stories while she worked on a new mural. He'd watch from the doorway, his heart full, remembering how close he'd come to missing this life while hiding behind his wheelchair. Patricia, now a doting grandmother, visited every Sunday. She'd bring tiny art supplies for the babies, soft, safe crayons and finger paints, insisting they'd inherit their mother's talent. The sound of her genuine laughter, mixed with the twins' happy gurgles, filled the mansion with new joy. Kate's gallery thrived, now featuring a special program for young parents to create art with their babies. She'd often bring the twins to these sessions, showing other parents how to capture their children's first artistic expressions. James would join them after work, his protective instincts now focused on their little family, his strength used for giving piggyback rides and building pillow forts. My precious family, as I conclude this story with you, my heart fills with hope. You see, love doesn't always arrive the way we expect it to. Sometimes it comes disguised as challenges, wrapped in moments that test our courage and faith. Kate and James's journey reminds us that real love grows in the most unexpected gardens. To those of you facing pressure to be someone you're not, to those struggling to hold on to your dreams while others try to reshape them, take heart. Your path is your own to choose. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply staying true to yourself, even when the whole world seems to push you in another direction. And remember, my dear ones, that love, true, deep, soul-touching love, can bloom even in the midst of secrets and fears. It grows stronger when we dare to be honest, when we choose trust over doubt, when we let our hearts lead the way. Just like Kate and James discovered, sometimes life's greatest blessings come wrapped in its biggest challenges. Now let us bow our heads for a final prayer together. Dear Lord, bless each precious soul that have joined me on this journey. Guide their hearts toward love, strengthen their courage in times of doubt, and light their path when darkness surrounds them. May they find the strength to choose their own destiny and the wisdom to recognize true love when it appears. Amen. My beautiful family, until our next story, keep your hearts open to love's possibilities. Remember to like, share, and leave your thoughts below. I cherish each one of you. Stay blessed, stay true to yourselves, and I'll see you in our next beautiful journey together.